Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. So lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans. Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Goeienaand. What's going on here? Goeienaand. Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. Well, third time lucky, but we got there, and that's the main thing. Now, tonight I'm talking to the Director General of the Department of Water and Sanitation in South Africa, and it's a very topical time to talk to him, as a lot of people in South Africa would understand. Now, the simple fact is, we can live without electricity, but we cannot live without drinking water. And in places like Ugu, in the southern parts of KwaZulu-Natal, the situation has gone beyond critical and ridiculous, and I'm going to show you a little video clip which will explain to you why. Let's have a look at that.
May 2023. I stand here at the Mzumkulwana River crossing, and this is what the water looks like this morning. Presently there's a heavy smell of sulfur. I'm no expert, but I don't know what's going on with this water now. This has been reported time and time again to Ugu about the pollution into this river. And now look what it looks like. Look at here. How does one drink this water? How does one use this water? How does the animals survive on this water? What does the wildlife do with this water looking like this? And the stench is absolutely unbearable. I don't know. Ugu is responsible for this.
Right, I just want to be very clear where this water ends up. This green stuff you just saw in the video, it comes here to the Umzimkhulu, and just up there is where the pump abstraction point is, St. Helens Rock. But more to the point, I've been casting here with this net for the last 2 days and I've caught nothing. There's foam in the water here. I know that you can't see it too clearly. Anyhow, this water comes from Umzimkhulu, comes all the way down here and goes to the mouth. Check these photos of fishermen fishing in this water. And then tourists come visit us and people swim in this water. It gets trapped in estuaries like Ivonga and some places where there's counter currents, and next thing people are getting sick. But look, over to the professional. I'm going to ask Professor Anthony Turton for his outlook on this.
It has recently come to our attention that a major pollution event is currently underway in the Mzimkhulwana River. This is the major tributary of the Mzimkhulu River that joins the mainstream of the river upstream of the water abstraction plant at Helen's Rock. In other words, all residents of the Ugu District Municipality drink the water that is being shown in this video. What the video clearly shows is a proliferation of algae, which is known technically as eutrophication. And we know in South Africa that eutrophication is a major problem, often associated with the release of sewage into the system. We know that eutrophication causes blue-green algae to grow, and we know that the blue-green algae in South Africa produces a toxin. We know that that toxin cannot be removed by any potable water treatment plant currently in existence. And we also know right now that we are dealing with a cholera outbreak in the country that is of national strategic importance. All of these things are known. It is time that the people of Ugu realize what is happening to their drinking water resource. It is time that they rose up and held the officials accountable, because people that continue to vote for a party that continues to abuse them is nothing more than a collaborator and not a victim. This is a technical problem, but it has...
I'm going to leave it there with that. I'm going to leave it there with that discussion, or that little video clip. Without any further ado, I'm going to get our guest on, Dr. Sean Phillips, and we're going to be talking, of course, about not just Ugu, but the water situation in places like Gauteng, where it's absolutely crazy. Okay, here we go. Let me get Sean on. Hi, Sean.
Hello, Scott.
How are you?
I'd like to know.
Excellent. Can you just turn your camera on?
It's on.
Okay, I just see a little icon. Oh, there we go. There we go. That's better. Now I can see you. Right. Now, Sean, there's one great truth, and I said this in the intro. We can live without electricity, but we cannot live without water. And you've got a really, really difficult job being Director General of the Department of Water and Sanitation. Can you give us a bit of your background as to how you came into this role, and what were the big changes that you initially faced?
Well, Scott, I've had more than 25 years of experience in senior management positions in the South African government. I have an engineering background. I did degrees in municipal engineering for developing areas, in civil engineering and in project management and in appropriate technology. And I've always had a passion for service delivery and improving service delivery.
Right.
So when the opportunity came to apply for this position, I took it because I enjoy a challenge, and also it meets my experience and background of senior management experience, in particular my experience in the infrastructure sector and my background in municipal engineering.
Okay, now I pick up a bit of an English accent. Are you originally from the UK?
No, I was born in Pietermaritzburg, but like many young white South Africans, I was received a draft to call up papers to be conscripted into the army in the bad days of apartheid in about 1980. and I chose to leave the country, and I went to live in England for 10 years rather than be conscripted to fight for the apartheid army.
Right. So you have got a bit of. I just picked up that little bit of English in your accent. Now, just getting back to my initial question, what were some of the big challenges that you initially faced when you took over that job?
Well, the department itself, the National Department of Water and Sanitation, has come out of a very difficult time. I think I'm about the 10th Director General or Acting Director General in as many years. And there's also been a high turnover of ministers. In addition, the department itself has been subject to corruption. It was a site of state capture. There are a number of special investigating unit investigations into various tenders awarded by the department over about a 5-year period during the last 10 years, and also similar investigations into a number of corrupt tenders awarded by the water boards during that period. So one of the key challenges was to stabilize the department and to make sure that all of these investigations into corruption and corrective actions are taken and implemented, that we reintroduce proper controls into the department, that we stabilize it. Then the second priority was, and this was under the leadership of my minister, Minister Senzo Mkhunu, who's also fairly new. He started about 6 months before me, and he chose me to the position without having met or known me before, just on the basis of my experience and qualifications. That he's particularly focused on us as a national department becoming much more involved in municipal water services than we were historically. And that is the main challenge in South Africa. Constitutionally, the water function is divided between national water functions and municipal water functions. And the key challenge, the biggest challenge in South Africa is the municipal water functions, which revolve around water and sanitation service delivery. Many of our municipalities are struggling to manage and implement water services to the minimum standards that we set as the national government.
Right. Now, you actually set out a series of demands to municipalities a while ago, in which they had to basically come back with an action plan to fix their water. Now, I believe that most of those municipalities actually responded and said, we're going to do this, that, and the other, and they never acted on it. And even more recently, you've now actually taken, I believe, a number of municipalities to court over the inaction and the state of play with their water. And the question that's been asked widely is, why didn't you take the individuals in charge of fixing the water at the municipalities, as opposed to the municipalities, which just means the taxpayers have to now fork out and for the what these guys are not doing?
We can do that, Scott, and we will do it in future. It gets a bit tricky, given that it gets quite complicated when you consider if you want to take a municipal manager to court or to lay criminal charges against a municipal manager, for example, for pollution by wastewater treatment works in his area and for not acting on directives, that municipal manager might have only been in the job for 6 months to a year. So it might be difficult to prove personal culpability. That municipal manager might be a person who's actually trying to improve things and is dealing with a legacy of mismanagement and poor governance.
Right. Now, when we talk about municipalities, currently, I know in Krugersdorp, they haven't had water for days because apparently there's some maintenance being done in Gauteng. What's the situation there?
Well, that's not unusual, Scott. We have water boards in Gauteng. Our big water board is Rand Water. It's one of our most competent water service providers in the country. Its role is to purchase bulk water from us as the national department and to treat it, to store it, and then to distribute it in the municipalities. It has decided to do some key major maintenance on its network, in particular to put in a new pipeline to join 2 other pipelines and related valves, which will make the whole system work more efficiently And it's decided at the same time, while it's doing that, to do a lot of other key maintenance that is due to be done, which will improve the functioning of the system. So I'm told that this is not new. There's always been periods going right back in history where the Rand Water has had to close off parts of the system while it does this kind of key maintenance. It had to close down part of the system to do that maintenance. So I don't think that in itself is an indication of poor performance by Rand Water or a major problem there. In fact, it's very good that they are doing the maintenance required in making improvements to the system. It's unlike many other municipalities which simply don't prioritize maintenance at all and don't carry out any maintenance, regular maintenance or preventative maintenance. Then their systems very quickly deteriorate into a very poor state.
Right. Now, one of the great challenges that they must have is a load shedding, because when the power goes off for hours at a time, they can't pump water to these huge storage tanks that they've got. What's the situation there if, for example, Eskom fails? Well, how will water be delivered to places where currently they get it from a storage tank?
Scott, Eskom completely failing and us having a complete grid collapse is a nightmare that we all have to pray doesn't happen. Because if that does happen, until they can get the grid working again, nothing will work. There will be no water supply, there'll be no functioning sanitation system, petrol pumps at petrol stations won't work, the telecommunication system won't work. So it's going to be catastrophic if it ever happens that the whole national grid collapses. But that is the very reason why Eskom is engaging in load shedding, to prevent that from happening. So as various generating units go offline because they break down, Eskom introduces various levels of load shedding to make sure that the system isn't over strained so that it becomes in danger of collapse.
Right.
So right. That's the short answer. And we all have to we all have to do our part to make sure that we work with Eskom to make sure that there isn't a complete grid collapse while they deal with this problem, this legacy problem of insufficient investment in new electricity generation infrastructure, which we'll probably have for the next few years until more generation capacity comes online. And by the way, there are lots of projects in the pipeline to put in place new electricity generation capacity. Now, the difficulty with that for us as the water sector is that it's relatively straightforward where water service providers like our water boards or the municipalities obtain electricity directly from Eskom. Usually when they obtain electricity directly from Eskom, they're able to get permission from Eskom to be exempted from load shedding. But it's more complicated when the water and sanitation infrastructure is embedded in municipal electricity distribution systems, because in those instances, the body that would have to give the exemption from load shedding is the municipality itself, because it's the municipality which is providing the water service provider with electricity. And in those cases, often the electricity distribution infrastructure isn't set up in a way that you can isolate only certain areas within a municipal area that's subject to load shedding. So the municipality is then in a very difficult situation, because if it doesn't implement the load shedding in a whole area, then it's not going to meet Eskom's needs for increasing load shedding, which in turn could result in us increasing the risk of having a complete grid collapse. So unfortunately, while we're having to go through this difficult time of load shedding in order to avoid grid collapse, at some times, it's going to have a negative effect on the water distribution system and result in water shortages for certain durations of time, while the pumping systems are affected by the shortage of electricity.
Right. Okay, now it's interesting because one of my guest in the side chat has written, "It's the first time in my entire 70 years that we have not had a drop of water. I don't have a clue how people manage before they go to work." So what she's saying is she must be over 70, but she says that she's never I think this is Krugersdorp, ever experienced this situation.
Maybe it's a combination of the load shedding and the maintenance that's been done by Rand Water, Scott. But I was asking the same question amongst my colleagues and some colleagues from Rand Water, and they told me that they've always had these periods of when they've closed down certain parts of the system for major maintenance for a few days.
Yeah, look, I can understand what you're saying. It makes sense. Just while we're talking about Eskom, De Ruyter, the ex-CEO of Eskom, he had the same problem as you with the corruption within Eskom. And he said that one of the really big challenges he faced was his own welfare, because apparently there are hit squads within Eskom who take out people who whistleblow or cause trouble for the cartels. And apparently in December last year he nearly died because he was poisoned with cyanide. Do you have the same sort of challenges at the Department of Water and Sanitation?
I haven't personally been threatened, Scott. I believe in some of our water boards, some people have been threatened who've been involved in tackling corruption and have been cooperating with some of these investigations. But we have to, as public servants now at this time in South Africa, we have to do our duty, and we have to do what's right in the interests of the country. So I have a duty as a public servant and accounting officer to report any corruption that I've become aware of, and to make sure that any recommendations from the investigating bodies for disciplinary action or for action against contractors or criminal charges to be laid, I have a duty to make sure that such actions are taken, and I will do so.
Right. Now, I think one of the whole foundations of the way water is monitored is what's called the Green, Blue and No Drop Certification Program. Can you explain just simply what that's all about?
Okay, it's a regulatory mechanism of the National Department of Water and Sanitation. In terms of the laws in South Africa, the National Department of Water and Sanitation is the regulator of the water and sanitation sector. And in our role as the regulator, we have to regulate various things. For example, we regulate water usage through issuing water use licenses. We also regulate pollution of water resources. And we also have a role to regulate municipal water and sanitation service delivery. So in performing that regulatory role, we've introduced these mechanisms called the blue, green, and no drop assessments, where we go and do very detailed, thorough assessments of the performance of all municipal wastewater and water treatment systems. The blue drop is the assessment of the drinking water systems, and the green drop is the assessment of the wastewater treatment systems. And the no drop is the assessment of the degree to which the municipal systems are using water efficiently. In other words, the degree to which they are losing water through things such as leaking pipes.
Right.
When we do these assessments, we then give each municipal system a rating. We provide that information to the municipalities. We also make it public, so that the public can know what is the performance of their municipalities and their different drinking water and wastewater treatment systems. But it's also a support mechanism to the municipalities, because when we give the municipalities their results, we also tell them exactly what is wrong with the performance of their system and what needs to be done to fix it. So sometimes it's problems with infrastructure, but at other times it's problems with the actual management and operation of the infrastructure. So, for example, some municipalities haven't hired properly qualified and experienced process controllers to manage their water treatment works and wastewater treatment works properly. So we do a thorough diagnostic of what is the cause of performance problems in these systems, and we inform the municipalities of what needs to be done to improve them.
Right. Now, what is the worst municipality in the country based on that rating system?
I can't give you that name offhand. There's 144 different water services authorities in the country.
Right.
I can give you general statistics such as that our green drop system, our green drop assessment process last year in 2022 found that 39% of municipal wastewater treatment systems in the country are in a critical state of performance.
Wow.
Which was very shocking. And that means that almost 40% of municipal wastewater treatment systems are functioning in such a way that they are polluting the environment and polluting water resources with only partially or untreated sewage.
Wow, that's crazy. One of the guys who's been singing your praises, I can tell you, is Professor Anthony Turton. I think you know. He's a specialist in water. And he happens to come from the district of Ugu, which has had some terrible problems when it comes to municipal water. And one of the issues they've had is the theft of equipment like pumps. Is that quite common across the country?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is very common. Unfortunately, there's a huge illegal market for scrap metal. The government has been trying to take action against it, for example, by limiting the exports of scrap metal. It's still a huge problem. It's exacerbated by the levels of unemployment and poverty in the country. But there are some areas, I've seen some wastewater treatment works, for example, in some towns where anything metal whatsoever has been stolen from the wastewater treatment works. So the works become completely dysfunctional.
Right. And just talking about Ugu, I had a live stream with Professor Turton and a lady called Memory Peterser. And it was a very, very disturbing discussion. And it was really how people in Ugu are just having no water at all. And at the same time, when they try and get the municipality to do something, they hit their heads against a brick wall. I'm going to share a screen with you, Anthony, and I'll tell you why I want to share this with you. This is a letter that Memory wrote with the help of Anthony Turton, and she actually sent this to 17 key people across South Africa. And she's got one of those email programs where you can actually monitor who's actually picked up the email and who hasn't. And of the 17 key people that she sent it to, only 4 people actually looked at the email. And I think this is one of the huge problems that people have. And I just want to draw your attention to these points that she raises for the Department of Water and Sanitation. Are you familiar with the situation at Ugu?
Yes, we got her letter on the 25th of May. And we've been investigating it since then. I've actually got the draft response in front of me to her. Our people are still busy finalizing the investigations on the issues. She will be getting a formal response shortly. So I'm glad to say that at least our department is one of the 4 people who opened her email and have been investigating the issues raised. We will be responding to her on all of those 4 issues. Just briefly on the 4 issues. On the one issue of banning industrial sand mining, unfortunately, legally, we can't do that because the legal system is that we have to consider all applications for sand mining, but people are not allowed to do sand mining from the rivers without a water use license. So if we find that some of those miners are engaging their mining activities without a water use license, we will take measures to stop them from doing that. We are in the process we are going to be determining the existing legitimate lawful use of water users in the catchment to ensure that they're sticking to their water allocations. That process has started and we'll be responding to her on progress in that regard. We're also going to be investigating her comments about the real causes of the saline intrusion and her arguments that the municipality shouldn't be building the infrastructure that it's planning to build to deal with it. That rather we should deal with the structures that have been built with these mining companies. So we are going to look into that, and we will come back to her on that. We have been busy since she sent her letter investigating the issues.
Well, that's really great to know, because I know a lot of people that I speak to complain about the fact that they raise a serious issue with a government department in South Africa, and it's like nobody ever responds, nobody ever takes it seriously, and nothing ever gets done.
In our department, we're trying to be the opposite of that. Our policy is that you must always respond to complaints, and you must always respond to queries and letters. That is very rude and against the ethos of the public service to just ignore complaints and letters and not respond.
Right. Well, I can tell you a bit of the background of the sand mining that's taking place in the near or from the Umzimkhulu River illegally, and that is that this is what has been alleged, is that over a period of time, 8 berms, which are like weirs, have been built across the Umzimkhulu River, and of course they've all failed, but they keep on building these things, and apparently there's one particular company that always gets the job to fix it. And what this company, or people associated with this company, do, apparently, is they cause the berms to fail, and then, of course, they get another contract to rebuild it, and they're basically cleaning up, and it's a way of actually just taking money from the Ugu district municipality.
Yes, as I indicated, she did indicate that in her letter. We are investigating that.
Well, that's good to know. And just sticking with Ugu, I mean, they've had a terrible water problem, and when it comes out at Port Shepstone, I think people who go there on holiday have no idea of how bad the water is that actually comes out the river mouth and goes into the sea at that point.
Yes, well, Ugu is not unique, Scott. As I indicated, our Green Drop report from last year indicated that almost 40% of municipal wastewater treatment systems are in a critical state of performance. So that's true for Ugu. It's true for eThekwini as well, where the poor maintenance of the wastewater treatment systems over a long period of time in Durban or eThekwini were then exacerbated by the very bad floods that happened there, and that's resulted in a situation where the municipality is constantly having to close beaches, even during periods of high tourism in the city, because of the sewage pollution in that area. It's also, you would have also heard that there was an outbreak of cholera in Hammanskraal outside Pretoria.
Yes.
Recently, last month. And we all know that cholera is normally associated with sewage pollution of water resources. And in that area in Hammanskraal, there's been a dysfunctional wastewater treatment works run by the city of Tshwane, which we've been taking regulatory action against Tshwane about for a number of years. And we eventually ended up attempting to get a court order to force Tshwane to fix the dysfunctional wastewater treatment works. It's not surprising that we're starting to get outbreaks of cholera where there are conditions such as exist with the effluent from that wastewater treatment works in Hammanskraal.
Yeah, and I guess you're very lucky that it's winter at the moment, because during summer, my understanding is that cholera outbreaks would just go rampant across the country because of the weather and the temperature.
Well, we didn't have cholera outbreaks last summer, so I think we've been fortunate to only have one cholera outbreak in recent years. There was a cholera outbreak, a big one in KwaZulu-Natal in the early 2000s, but I think we're at high risk of more cholera outbreaks. I think what is stopping us at the moment from getting more cholera outbreaks is that there's a very strong communications program to people that they mustn't drink untreated water, or if they have to, that they must boil it first. And that most people who are getting water from municipal systems are getting it from the water treatment works and not taking it directly from the polluted rivers. And generally, the water treatment works are in a bit better condition than the wastewater treatment works. But our latest Blue Drop results have also shown that there's been a deterioration in the quality of drinking water in the country. And we've also been emphasizing to everybody that they must check that their municipalities are testing the water regularly, and that their municipalities inform them if the tests on the drinking water don't meet the required standards.
Right. You know, I grew up in a little town called Greytown back in the late 1960s, early 1970s. I actually worked at Barclays Bank in Greytown. And they had a little dam called Mirthley Lake, which is sort of over the town, and that's where they get their water. And the water there was incredibly clean. You know, it was full of bluegill and full of bass, and I used to go fishing there. It was just a lovely, lovely dam. And dams like that today are just, they're full of sewage. And there's one in particular which is of great concern, I think, to especially the Gauteng area, and that's Hartbeespoort Dam, where you've got water hyacinth over most of the dam now, which reflects what's going on underneath. What's the situation with Hartbeespoort Dam?
Hartbeespoort Dam is fed from the Vaal River, and the Vaal River is heavily polluted from wastewater treatment plants which aren't functioning to standard, including in Gauteng, but also wastewater treatment plants in other municipalities and other provinces, including in Mpumalanga and Northwest.
Right. Now, do you know a fellow by the name of Rodney Genricks?
No.
Okay. Well, that's interesting, because Rodney, I had a live stream with him probably 3 months ago now, but he's got a company which produces a biological solution to pollution in dams. And one of the issues he had when we were talking is that this solution he has is very different to the chemical one, which basically you throw a bunch of chemicals in there and they just go to the bottom and become part of the sediment with the sewage or the crap at the bottom of the dam. But the biological treatment he has actually filters down and gets rid of all that sediment. It actually cleans it out. It's a biological response, not a chemical response. And his big issue was that he's tried to approach people like yourself with his product, which has worked apparently in dams around golf courses and other bigger dams on farms and stuff like that, and clean them literally within a couple of months. He's tried to put that product in front of somebody at the Department of Water and Sanitation, but he says it's like you're hitting your head against a brick wall. No one will come and speak to him.
Okay, well, we have had offers from a number of different companies with similar technologies. In fact, we are experimenting with some exactly the same thing, some biological mechanisms for reducing the amount of pollutants in the Hartbeespoort Dam now. If you contact him again, you can ask him to send me an email, and I'll look at it and check whether it's not his company that we're already working with, or if it's another company. But we are working closely with the various community organizations around the Hartbeespoort Dam and collaborating with them, both to remove the hyacinth during the periods of the year when the hyacinth grows a lot, but also to look at possible solutions and to experiment with them, like you're mentioning.
Right.
But in the medium to longer term, the solution to the problems at Hartbeespoort Dam lie in improving the performance of those wastewater treatment plants, which are pumping partially or untreated sewage into the Vaal River.
Yes, I understand that about 30% of the Hartbeespoort Dam is actually sediment or largely sewage, which is crazy.
Yes.
That is just Yeah, I mean, you look at a dam, you think, wow, look at this huge body of water, and you don't realize what's actually in it, for the average person. Now, I've got a question here from the side chat, and this person says, please ask Dr. Phillips in which cities one should not be drinking the tap water as of today. And let's just concentrate on the major city centres like Johannesburg, Pretoria, Durban, Cape Town, etc.
Okay, Scott, it's an understandable question, but it's not a question that I should answer because it's a complicated question, and let me explain to you why. Cities, when they provide water to their people, they provide them from water treatment works. They are legally required to test that water on an hourly basis. They also have to do other tests, some of them daily tests, some of them weekly tests. There's a whole testing regime which is specified by law that the municipalities must do on their water. If something goes wrong with that water treatment works, if it malfunctions, if something breaks down at the water treatment works, then it might stop meeting the water standard. So I could tell you now that a certain municipality is safe to drink the water. But what happens in a few hours from now if the water treatment works gets a problem and it no longer becomes safe? Then you could say that I've wrongly told people and put people's lives at risk by telling them that it's safe to drink the water in their city. And that's the reason why we've been saying to everybody, you must hold your municipalities accountable. You must ask for information from your municipalities. Constitutionally, municipalities have the function to provide people with water and sanitation services in South Africa. It would be wrong for me as the Director General of the National Department, without live information on every water treatment works in the country and all the cities, to advise people whether water is safe to drink in their areas or not. Municipalities have a legal obligation to inform their residents if their water becomes unsafe to drink, if it's no longer meeting the tests that they are legally required to do. So I would like to answer your question by answering to say that if you live in Johannesburg, you must find out from your councillors, from your Joburg municipalities, whether your water is safe to drink or not. And you must hold your municipality accountable for meeting its legal obligations to regularly test the water and to provide you with information as to whether it's safe to drink or not.
Right. But I guess it's always a good idea to filter your water before drinking in South Africa.
Well, in some municipalities, the water is very safe to drink. I live in Johannesburg. I don't filter my water. I drink my tap water that's provided by Joburg Water, which in turn gets it from Rand Water all the time. And I've never had a problem. And I trust the ability of Joburg Water. I've seen their laboratories. I know the testing that they do, and I trust that they are doing the tests that are required, that they're informing us if there's a problem. And there are other areas like Joburg where it remains safe to drink the tap water.
Right. Now, I'm going to wrap up this live stream soon. I just want to thank you so much for joining me and talking to us tonight. And what I will do is I will get Rodney Genricks to he's actually the guy who's been, I think he's contracted to work on a piece of Hartbeespoort Dam. I don't know how that works, but there's a community there near Hartbeespoort, the little town, and they've actually got him in to try and clean up their little part of the dam. I don't know if that sounds familiar to you.
There are several community organizations which are active there that we've been liaising with and working with. So I think the best thing is just to ask him to drop me an email, and then I'll liaise with him directly, and then we'll see whether he's part of one of those organizations or not.
Right, okay. And what I'll do is I'll also drop in his website address into the Skype side chat so you can have a look at that as well.
Okay.
Now, Sean, is there anything a message you'd like to give to the people of South Africa? Because, I mean, there are a lot of people who are very worried about water. For example, when the taps don't run. Can you give them some assurances as to what's going to be happening with water in the future?
What I can say is that at the National Department, we are working very hard to address the situation. we are doing several things. The first is that, particularly under our new Minister Senzo Mchunu, we are very active across the country, working with the worst performing municipalities, engaging with their leadership, getting them to agree on improvement plans, providing them with infrastructure grants to assist them to address the worst aspects of their infrastructural issues. We are also strengthening our role as the regulator. We're introducing revised and strengthened norms and standards, for example, by having stronger standards for the skills levels and qualifications and experience requirements of the technicians working at water and wastewater treatment plants and the managers of those plants. And then over and above that, we are looking at further regulatory changes, legislative amendments to the Water Services Act to give us stronger regulatory powers to enforce minimum norms and standards in municipalities, and as a last resort, to enable the minister to intervene in a municipality which fails to respond to directives, to appoint a capable water service provider in that municipality. So those are the various measures that we're currently engaged in, and the measures that we've got in the pipeline, which will be coming in the future, which we believe will help us to halt the decline in municipal water and sanitation services and to turn it around.
Right. Now I've got a follow-up question on that one about the cities. Are there, for example, cities in South Africa that when you look at the Blue Drop assessment program, are there some cities in South Africa which are basically at a level which is not good?
Remember the Blue Drop report that we're going to issue now was based on an assessment of the tests done by the municipalities during the 21-22 financial year. Mm-hmm. So we will be publishing those results. We're going to issue the full Blue Drop reports. They will be public on our website so people can look at all their municipalities. But people should just take care to note that these are an assessment of the tests done by those municipalities during one financial year, which ended about 9 months ago. Because of the extent of the assessments and the detail which the assessments go into, it takes this amount of time to compile it all together and release it. But there were some cities and towns which performed well in terms of those Blue Drop assessments, and there were also some that performed badly. What you'll also find is that in some areas, some drinking water and wastewater treatment systems in a particular city might be performing well, whereas others are not performing well. So, for example, we know in Tshwane, the wastewater treatment system in Hammanskraal is in a very poor state. But other wastewater treatment systems in Tshwane are in a much better state.
Right. Okay. Now, one final question for you. What is NDP 2030 on your banner behind you?
National Development Plan. We have a National Development Plan. I don't know if you remember, we had a National Planning Commission, which was led by former Minister Trevor Manuel, and the current President Cyril Ramaphosa was also involved in that planning commission, and they produced a national development plan with targets for 2030 of where we'd like to take the country.
Right. Okay. Now, just finally, is there a message you'd like to give out to people, just personally?
The message that I would like to give out to people is let's all work together. Certainly in my department, we are very keen on forming partnerships with civil society and with the private sector. And I think we're showing from what we're doing that we are not only saying that, but we are also doing it practically. There are some major partnerships that we have with the private sector to improve water supply in various parts of the country. We are trying to work as much as we can with civil society in a collaborative way. And I think working together, we can hold our municipalities accountable, and we can turn things around.
Right. Sean, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, and maybe in the future we'll organize another live stream so we can have a catch-up on how things are going in South Africa.
You're welcome, Scott.
Take care and bye for now.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that was Dr. Sean Phillips, and from the Department of Water and Sanitation. Of course, he's the head honcho there, and I was very impressed, I've got to say. I think that it looks like they're really on top of things, and let's hope that in the near future everything will come right in South Africa when it comes to drinking water. I'm going to go out with Hier Bly Ek Boer, the theme song sung by Winston Coetzee. Take care, everybody, and have a great evening. Bye for now.
Meer as 61,000 van ons voorvaders het op die grens vir ons gesterwe, sodat ons vry kan wees. Die is my land, die is my reg, hier is ek boer. Van stof is ek gemaak en sal ek terugkeer. Die Bybel is die woord waaruit ek leer, soos die grond op die aarde. Hier bly ek boer. So diep in die nacht sal die vyand kom, maar hier bly ek staan en ek draai nie om, want jy maak my nie bang nie. Hier bly ek boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my zweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Soos blaasom in die somer wat vreugde bring, oupa wat maniekie roe kon sing, soos hy stap deur die lande. Hier was hy boer. My wortels leek diep in die grond geplant. Hy sien soos my pa, los ek vir jou die land, en jy hoef nie te vrees nie. Hier sal jy boer. My land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my zweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Die sal kom, 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 die sal kom.